city assessor. He's out on military leave right now, so the assessor's office has prepared a narrated PowerPoint for this today. So if we could play that now, and then when that's finished, I can answer any questions at that time.
Any questions?
Good afternoon. Presented before you is a brief overview of the 2025 budget request for the City Assessor's Office. To begin, I would like to show you a short educational video that this office hosts on our website that explains the role of the Assessor's Office.
So, there's a lot of misunderstanding about the role of assessors and how they affect the property tax that homeowners pay. When someone hears the term assessor, they seem to think of a scary figure reaching for their wallet. Not so. Assessors don't set tax rates. Assessors don't chase tax dollars. An assessor is interested in fairly determining property values, and they take great pride in it. Property tax is determined by a simple formula. Assessors only affect one of these variables, the value. And they do so with incredible accuracy. Assessors aren't tax collectors or even tax setters. They're just fellow taxpayers, and their primary goal is to make everything fair and equitable. Imagine that you're in a restaurant with two friends. One orders a hot dog, one orders a plate of caviar, and you order a steak. The waiter comes to the table with a total bill of $100, but he doesn't know how much each of you should pay. If everyone paid the same amount, the guy who ordered the caviar might be happy. But what about the guy who ordered the hot dog? Enter assessors. The food is your property. Just like these meals, some people's property is worth more than others. And it's the assessor's job to determine how much each property is worth. That's it. So in the same way the value of these menu items would need to be determined, an assessor places value on properties to ensure fairness and equity. After the assessor determines the value of each property, local governing bodies will set their budgets for the coming year. They set the tax rate in order to produce the dollars needed for their budgets. The value of a property does not affect the amount of property tax needed. The sum total of all those budgets is a set number that has to be divided up among all the property owners. So even if everyone's value was cut in half by the assessors, the tax rate will be raised in order to generate the same amount of tax revenue. The assessors don't determine the taxes you pay. They just determine the values of properties to keep everything as fair and equitable as possible. When you notice a change in your property's assessed value, that change is the result of a never-ending quest for fairness and accuracy. Assessors are graded on their performance, so there is a detailed system to get accurate valuations. First, the assessor looks at similar properties that have sold, their sale prices, and the terms and conditions of each sale. That's the reason your home won't just be compared to the place next door. Studying things like square footage, age, and location helps assessors determine how comparable another property is to yours. Even seemingly small details, like an extra bathroom or finished basement, can result in significant differences in value in two otherwise identical homes. Assessors maintain a thorough database of real estate information to make this process as precise as possible. Changes in value are typically the result of local real estate market sales or major changes to a property. Remodel a kitchen or finish your basement, and your property's value could increase. When you see your home's assessed value, you can rest assured that the number has not been drawn out of a hat, nor generated with anything but equity and accuracy in mind. Long story short, assessors are here to help, not trying to hinder. Their focus is accurate values, not tax collection. The only things an assessor chases are fairness and equity, and they take great pride in it.
Each year, the Assessor's Office is required to value all real estate within the city limits. We complete this task with a combination of physical and office reviews of property. On average, appraisers for this office physically review roughly 15% of taxable property each year. Physical reviews can include measurements, inspections, and one-on-one interaction with property owners. Besides the heavy lift of valuing over 19,000 properties each year, this office assists over 1,400 property owners in the application of tax exemptions and property tax credits. Tax credits are reductions to the taxable value of a property. Those local tax dollars are offset and paid for through the state of North Dakota's annual budget. This office's budget can be easily split into 4 separate areas of cost: staff salaries, employee benefits, overhead cost, and operating expenses. As illustrated in the previous slide, 92% of the assessor's office budget is for staff salaries and employee benefits to complete the required tasks of this office, as mandated under North Dakota law. We pride ourselves as being one of the most efficient assessment departments in the state. In comparison, one city of Minot appraiser conducts the same workload that it would take 1.5 people to perform in other jurisdictions. This is primarily due to experience and training of our appraisal staff. The smallest portion of this office's budget is comprised of overhead expenses. This ranges from the utilities that we pay to occupy our space to the insurance to cover our city-owned vehicles. The remaining portion of our budget, roughly 6.5% on average, is operating expenses. These expenses include the items listed. The largest cost with this area is for computer-aided mass appraisal software to assist appraisers in valuing property. Our appraisal system allows this office to keep a detailed inventory of all property within the city, track and maintain ownership records of all sales of real estate, and host a multitude of real estate services to the public. Last year alone, over 62,000 individual IP addresses accessed the City of Minot property records. Of the 62,000, they viewed or researched over 975,000 pages of property records that this office maintains. The 2025 budget request does not include any new items other than current pay plan progression and any potential cost associated to cover increase in employee benefits. In conclusion, the proposed 2025 Assessor's Office budget entails the necessary resources this office needs to provide fair and equitable valuations of property. At this time, staff from the Assessor's Office are available to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Scott?
Damien, obviously property taxes is something we hear a lot about, and you had mentioned or during the presentation about reviewing 15% of properties per year roughly. So if a property is reviewed, is there likely to be a bump in property in evaluation at that time? Just trying to kind of get a handle on it. One of the properties I looked at, it went, it was sold, say, 5 years ago, 2.5 years, or 2 years ago, it had a rather large bump in valuation. Would that be because it was reviewed at that time, or what would have been a likely reason for that?
Not necessarily. Things that would cause an increase from a couple of years ago to today might be the market in Minot is still increasing. Maybe they've done some work to it, whether it was a permit was required or not. Sometimes floor covering, painting, and general remodeling like that do have an effect on the market value, but a permit necessarily isn't needed for that, so we wouldn't have caught it at the time of a permit being pulled.
Is that 15% per year, is that industry standard? Is that something you wish you could do more of, less of? What are your thoughts around that?
According to IAAO, which is our International Assessors Association, that is that is right in an industry standard of about 5 to 6 years of reviewing your inventory.
Thank you. That's all.
Any other questions from council? Steve?
Just following up on what Scott's asked, if you have major improvements to the point where you ask for building permit, does that trigger a reassessment of the value of the property?
If a residential or commercial building permit is taken out, we get a copy of that and we go out to that property, yes.
So that happens automatically?
Yes.
Okay. And otherwise, unless it's a regional area-wide survey, there's no way you would pick a certain property. If you haven't been there for 7 years and you do a survey of the neighborhood and all of them go up, that one will go up too probably. But there's no other mechanism by which that would happen normally.
No, and let's use your neighborhood as an example since you asked the question. If your neighbor did new siding, windows, and roof 1 year and we're not scheduled for that area for the next 3 years, we wouldn't know about it unless a permit was pulled out for doing that work.
And if everybody put new siding on their house and I didn't, my value would probably go up or stay the same, or?
It's possible that their house would be worth more money than yours because they've got improvements that you don't.
And mine would go up then only based on sales or anything, something like that.
So market adjustments from year to year, correct?
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Damon, do you guys, obviously you guys are members of the MLS, do you guys reassess when a property transfers ownership?
Correct. Every research, every sale, and send a request to review a property on each qualifying sale that happens.
Okay, thank you.
Scott?
Sorry, just a follow-up on that. And the sale price automatically becomes the assessed value, is that correct? So if I sell my house for $1 million, but it's only supposed to be, I mean, I don't know, answer, you know what my question is.
Not necessarily.
Okay, so let's say that I sell my house for significantly below market value. Does that automatically, the sale price become the assessed value, or would it still be based on other factors as well, or significantly above market value?
We're going to take a look at other factors also.
Okay,
There may be reasons other than market value that somebody sold their house for more or less than what the market value is.
okay, thank you.
Steve?
I know you give us figures as to the valuation of permits and things like that, and generally, kind of the way the market is going, maybe Paul would be a better person to answer here, but are property values generally continuing to increase in Minot, and if they are they continuing at the same rate, or is there any downturn or upturn in terms of how more valuable property is becoming in the community?
Well, this last year, our residential market, we saw an increase of about 7% according to our studies.
So the average house would have increased in value about 7%, is what you're saying?
On average, yeah. 5 to 10 years ago, that rate might have been 10 to 15%.
And how's it going for commercial?
This last year, I believe, commercial property was selling for almost 9% more than assessed value.
Okay, but in terms of just the general value of the property, whether it's assessed or sales, is that slope of the line still continuing to increase at about the same level?
Correct. We raised, if I'm understanding your question correctly, we raised residential properties this year about 4.5%, and we raised commercial properties about 4% this last assessment cycle.
So while people may dislike the fact that the increased value in their property results in them paying more taxes, they have more wealth. And that's continuing to improve for the community as a whole. So it's a prosperous community in terms of property assessment and
It
valuations.
seems that, yeah, we're continuing that trend of our property is increasing from year to year.
It's good to hear.
Any other questions from council? If not, Kenneth? Thank you.
Thank you.
Should we take a 15-minute break? This time we'll take a break, let the next presenter set up. We'll reconvene in 1:45.